Hi, I am Priscilla Gallegos, and I will be doing the video assignment for June 14th, talking about performance variables listed in our textbook. So for our low speed strength, I'll be talking about deadlift, particularly in powerlifting. The low speed strength is a movement in powerlifting, like the deadlift. It requires maximum force to lift heavy weights off the ground. It's essential for improving overall strength and performance in lifts that involve starting from a dead stop. So the test protocol, I would say, would be one repetition maximum of like a regular deadlift. For the Z-score calculations, I would compare the athlete's one repetition maximum or the 1 RM against their normal for their weight class to assess like relative strength levels of other athletes. For the next one, I would do sumo wrestling. Sumo wrestlers, they need low speed strength to initiate and maintain powerful pushes and holds against opponents in the ring. For the test protocol, I'll be doing an isometric mid-thigh pull strength test. For the Z-score calculation, I would compare the isometric strength values against other sumo wrestlers to evaluate relative strength in sumo-specific movements. Next would be shot put track and field. These kind of athletes need a low speed strength to generate like power in their legs and core for that initial push and balance in that shot put throw. Strength contributes to throwing distance and technique control. For their test protocol, I would do a medicine ball throw for distance. For the Z-score calculation, I would be comparing the throwing distance, their throwing distance against other shot put throwing distance athletes to test the relative strength during this event. Next, we have high speed strength or muscular power. The clean and jerk in weightlifting, powerlifting. I think this is a high speed strength because of the jerk part is essential in weightlifting. It has an explosive movement. The power output is the power output allows a player to actually do the jerk portion of the movement. For the test protocol, I would do 1 RM, 1 repetition maximum for a clean and jerk. Next, for the Z-score calculation, I would compare that 1 RM against weightlifting specific norms to assess relative power output. Next, we have sprinting. Usually happens in track and field. Sprinters rely on high speed strength for rapid acceleration and maximum velocity during races. So the power will directly impact the sprinter's performance and finishing times. For the test protocol, I would mix the lab protocols with field protocols using maybe electronic timing gates and a flying 30-meter sprint. For the Z-score calculation, I would compare sprint times against sprinter-specific norms to evaluate relative power and speed. And then basketball. I put basketball in high-speed strength due to like dunking and stuff like that. Basically a high-speed strength in the lower body to jump explosively. So the power will influence the vertical jump height and dunking ability. Vertical jump height, I would use that as the test protocol using a VTEC or force platforms. Also bringing in lab protocols into field protocols. For the Z-score calculation, I would compare the jump height against basketball-specific norms to assess relative explosive power. Next, we have anaerobic capacity. For my first example, I would use ice hockey. For the ice hockey shift, anaerobic capacity is used for hockey players during intensive shifts, involving sprints and quick changes in direction. So the ability to sustain high-intensity efforts influence performances during critical game movements. The test protocol would be repeated sprint ability tests. Z-score calculation would be compared the total sprint time against norms for ice hockey players to assess anaerobic fitness. Next would be 100-meter freestyle swimming. Swimming needs anaerobic capacity for explosive starts and turns during the events. For anaerobic fitness, affects race performance and efficiency of turns. For the test protocol, I'd do a 50-meter sprint with time split for turn speed. For the Z-score calculation, I'll compare sprint times against swimmer-specific norms to evaluate anaerobic performance. Next, we have boxing match. Boxers require anaerobic capacity for repeated bursts of high-intensity punches and defensive movements. Aerobic fitness influences endurance and recovery between the rounds. For the test protocol, I'll be doing a punching bag drill for a set duration with recorded punch count and intensity. For the Z-score calculation, I would compare the punch count and intensity against boxing-specific norms to assess anaerobic endurance. Next, we have aerobic capacity. So for aerobic capacity, I have marathon running. So marathon runners use aerobic capacity to sustain higher pace over long distances. And enhance endurance, delays fatigue, and improves race performance. For the test protocol, probably a VO2 max test on a treadmill with gas exchange analysis. For the Z-score calculation, I would compare the VO2 max values against distance runner norms to assess aerobic fitness. We have cycling time, cycle time trial cycling. Cyclists rely on aerobic capacity for sustained power output during time trials and long distance races. Aerobic fitness influences cycling performance over varying terrains and durations. Incremental exercise tests on a cycling ergometer would be my test protocol, and the Z-score calculation would be the comparing the power output at lactate threshold against cyclist-specific norms to evaluate aerobic endurance. Also, last one would be rowing, a 2,000-meter race. So rowers depend on aerobic capacity for endurance and sustained power output during races. Aerobic fitness impacts the rowing speed and efficiency over race distances. My protocol would be a 200-meter rowing ergometer test with recorded time. For the Z-score calculation, I would compare the race times against rower-specific norms to assess aerobic performance. Next, we have muscular endurance. Muscular endurance, I chose CrossFit. So CrossFit athletes need muscular endurance for prolonged high-intensity workouts involving various functional movements. The endurance allows athletes to sustain efforts across multiple exercises and rounds. For the test protocol, I would do as many rounds as possible of a set workout routine, just to be able, for the Z-score calculation, compare the total rounds completed against CrossFit specific norms to see where their muscular endurance is at. Next would be tennis, a tennis match. So tennis players require muscular endurance for repeated strokes and movement during matches. The muscular endurance enhances performance consistency throughout long matches. For the test protocol, time to exhaustion test on tennis court. So basically, comparing for the Z-score, I would compare the match duration and stroke consistency against tennis-specific norms for endurance. Next, also for muscular endurance, I chose soccer game. They need muscular endurance for continuous running, sprinting, and various movements throughout the match. Endurance contributes to maintaining performance quality over 90 minutes. High intensity interval running drills with recorded time and distance would be my test protocol. And for the Z-score calculations, I'll compare the total distance covered or sprint repetitions against soccer-specific norms for endurance. Agility, I chose football because football players require agility for quick footwork and direction changes during offensive and defensive maneuvers. Justification for that would be agility not only enhances performance, and it allows the ability to maintain ball control. The protocol would be a agility t-test or a 505 agility test. For the Z-score calculations, I would compare the total time against against football-specific norms for agility. Next, I have basketball for agility. Like a specific defensive drill. Basketball players need agility for lateral movements and quick changes and durations against defensive plays, so defensive drills. Agility improves defensive efficiency and ability to guard opponents. So I would do a lateral shuffle drill or a T-drill with cones. I would compare the drill performance, time, and accuracy against basketball-specific norms for agility. Next, we have tennis court movement. So tennis, they require agility for rapid movement and quick adjustments to reach and return shots. Agility enhances sport coverage and responsiveness during matches. The hexagon agility test or the the hexagon agility test that really focuses on tennis-specific movements, and I would compare that agility test against others tennis-specific norms to assess movement efficiency. Next, we have speed. We have a 100-meter sprint. So like track and field, sprinters need speed for quick acceleration and maintaining maximum velocity throughout the race. Speed directly influences race outcomes and performance. So that test protocol, I would use like lab electronic timing gates. So the lab protocol mixed with field protocols for more valid and more reliable outcome for measuring their 100-meter sprint. So for the Z-score calculation, I would compare sprint times against other sprinters' specific norms for speed. Next, I have American football. So like football receiver routes or a specific position. Football receivers rely on speed to outrun defenders and catch passes down the field. So speed will enhance their playmaking ability and scoring opportunities. So for the test protocol, you can do route running drills with timed sprints, and then you would compare those sprint times and route efficiency against football-specific norms for speed. Next, we have a 50-meter freestyle swimming. So swimmers need a speed for sprint events like the 500 meters freestyle. Speed influences race placements and finishing times. I would do for the test protocol 50-meter sprint with time splits. For the Z-score calculation, I would compare sprint times against swimmer-specific norms for speed. Next, I have balance and stability for the next sport. I have surfers. Surfers require balance and stability to maintain control and maneuver on the board while riding waves. Because balance impacts wave riding ability and safety. So I would, for the test protocol, I would do a balance board or stability ball exercises with time durations. For the Z-score calculations, I would compare balance times against surfing specific norms to assess stability. Next, I have a gymnast beam route routine. So gymnasts need balance and stability for performing routines on the beam, requiring precise movements and hold. Stability affects the performance and quality and safety during routines. So for the test protocol, I would do beam routine with scored execution and balance assessments. And then I would compare those routine scores against specific gymnastic-specific norms for balance. Next, we have mountain biking. Mountain bikers rely on balance and stability to navigate through uneven terrain and obstacles. The balance enhances bike handling skills and safety on trails. For the protocol, I would use the obstacle course with time completion and balance assessments. Maybe short ones they can go through really fast. And then compare obstacle course times and balance scores against mountain biking specific norms. So when interpreting Z-scores, a positive Z-score will indicate the athletes performed better than the average of the reference group, and while a negative Z-score indicates performance below average. The magnitude of the Z-score indicates how far above or below average the athlete performed. So the Z-score will help coaches and sports scientists objectively assess an athlete's strength and weakness relative to peers or established norms. They provide a standardized way to gauge performance and improvements and identify areas for targeted training interventions. Thank you.